Good afternoon. My name's Howard Jacob. I'm past president and current board member of Intel Alumni Network, and I'd like to welcome you to Safeguarding Your Future in the Digital Age. Before we get going, I'd like to remind you that on May 16th, we will be hosting our ever-popular Bum for Alums as both an in-person and virtual event. For those who would like to attend in person and enjoy networking, pizza, and soft drinks before the presentation, please plan to join us at the SC9 auditorium at 5 p.m. For virtual attendees, the presentation will begin at 5:50 p.m. Tickets for both the live event at $20 per person and the virtual event for free are available on the Eventbrite links that should be coming up in the chat box now. And they are. Excellent. So, one more housekeeping item. Please submit your questions for Tyson in the Q&A window only. Do not use the chat window for questions. If you'd like to chat with other participants, please feel free to use the chat window. I'd now like to introduce our speaker for today. Tyson Wrench is an Intel alumnus and co-author of the gripping true crime book, Until Someone Gets Hurt. His primary career path was focused on sales and marketing until he became a victim of fraud himself. At that point, he broadened his expertise to include investigating fraud, beginning with his own. Raised in Cupertino and now a resident of San Francisco following some time living in Las Vegas, Tyson's diverse background, including numerous sales roles and work with a private investigation firm, has equipped him very well with invaluable insights into combating high-tech crime. Please welcome Tyson Wrench.
Thank you, Howard. Thank you. Yeah, and it's kind of a full circle moment because a lot of this wouldn't have happened without Intel, and it's just kind of a fluke because it was Intel when I got the job at Intel that moved me to San Francisco, and that's where I met these wonderful characters, and then it was my transfer to Intel in Munich where I got laid off in 2007. That was the severance package that they went after. So this is the fun part. So let me get right to the presentation here, and we will get right into the fun part. But I want to start off with, oops, where are we here? There we go. We'll start off, basically, this is a cautionary tale. So I want to thank you all for attending because this really, a lot of this wouldn't have happened to me if I had heard this prior to it all happening. So I want to kind of go over first what happened to me, and then go over some characteristics of con men and victims. So maybe you can see if somebody like this is in your life, and then go over the kind of the three big cons that are out there. There are a lot, but we'll go over the umbrella of the two main ones and kind of a new one that I want to bring to your attention as well. So, growing up in Cupertino and just general, my life was very kind of a rose-colored lenses until age 34, when this would be 17 years ago, when I took a severance package from Intel in Europe, and I called my best friend and said, "Hey, I got this nice check. I'm coming back to San Francisco to get my car, but I had a house in Vegas, and that's where I was going to make my residency." And so, we partied and had a good time. And then I went to South America for a month because I just needed a break from tech. And this was just months before the iPhone came out, and just to kind of level set, it wasn't that long ago. And so you had to go to an internet cafe to do anything really on the internet. And so 3 weeks into my trip, I was in Brazil. I went online and all of my bank accounts were empty. And the credit cards that I left at home had been charged up. And that, as soon as I saw that, I thought, oh my God, I have to go home. So I went to the airport, took the next flight, flew home unannounced. And when I got home, I discovered that somebody else had moved into my house. Someone else was living there. They weren't home, but I mean, there was other furniture. There were other clothes in my closet. And when I started going through it, I discovered that you I discovered that it was my best friend of 5 years. And he, as I started investigating and going through the stuff, I realized he wasn't who he said he was at all. But he was part of a three-man long con team. In other words, they befriend you for a long time, and really build up a story. And these three guys, obviously, was my friend Danny. Then you had his lawyer, and then you had really another character who was the Prince of Nepal. And I can already hear you guys laughing. But yeah, he came from Nepal on a student visa. We did a whole show just on him. But yeah, we he got the nickname of the Dark Prince, and you'll start to see why. But yeah, and I got home, and you find all this out, and you realize that betrayal actually hurts, and it's like right here in the sternum, and it is not a fun thing. To make matters worse, when I called the police, they asked, they're like, okay, so did you get your money back? And yeah, the Wells Fargo put the money back in my account, um, uh, because I was overseas, and proved that it wasn't me. And then nothing was stolen from my house. So the cops were like, well, then you're not a victim. So the bank is the victim, and I was so angry that I couldn't let it go. And so I took that background that Howard had mentioned about my past in working in high tech crime, private investigation, and just decided that I was just going to be a pain in their rear, and I was going to chase them for a couple of years. Well, I was going to chase them, and it turned out to be a 2-year chase, I should say. And over those 2 years, I came across a couple of there's a couple of stories that I thought I would share with you, because they're local here to the Bay Area. So for those of you in the Bay Area, you may have heard these. But there was a San Francisco resident here named Thomas White. He had a net worth in the 9-figure range. The reason we all can trade stocks online is thanks to him selling this company. And these guys went after him. They even conned People magazine into writing a story about them chasing him. And so they ended up, he had a big house near Puerto Vallarta in Mismaloya, and they framed him for some sexual abuse of these 22 street kids. And he ended up in jail. And I interviewed him there a couple of times. And on the last time I interviewed him, just before he died in jail, I asked him, if he had any regrets, and anything he could change in the past. And he said to me was, he actually had to think about it. I don't think anybody asked him that, but he said everything changed when he told all of his friends how much money he made when he sold his company. And so his final advice to me was to just never tell anybody what you have. And I know that seems like common sense, but I think when we get into the romance scam piece, I think that becomes a serious issue. So bookmark that and keep that in mind. Another one that I stumbled across that kind of branched off, and it was a nutso story, was there was a woman here in San Francisco who had a penthouse at the Rincon Towers. And she I think she was leasing it, and they got the paperwork, and they were able to transfer the title in a way that made it appear, and that basically they legally owned this condo outright, and it was in their name. And then they got the Bank of Solvang to come and do a $2 million home equity line of credit on it, and then they split. And then Shirley gets a $50,000 title transfer tax bill from the city of San Francisco, and says, what's this? And then she finds out from her real estate agent she doesn't even own her home anymore. So you've probably seen the commercials for Title Lock from the people of LifeLock. Well, this is it. So there are this is an issue, and it is not cheap to fix. So you can't just call and have it undone. And Shirley ended up in the hospital just from the stress of it all, and she's still fighting him. He's from jail, still avoiding paying her back for everything. But he ran from the cops. He posted jail. He was caught in Watsonville. It was a crazy, this kind of story that would end up on American Greed. But yeah, wild story. But again, if you own your home, especially if you own your home outright, in the very back, I have some advice, but there are some counties have ways to alert you if you have any changes to your title. It won't stop the changes to your title, but it will alert you if somebody is making any changes to your title. But then finally, in 2009, I got my sweet revenge. Again, through a series of random flukes. I got a call about it was a jewelry heist in Marin that led me to a missing person in Palm Springs, of all cities. And found an article of this missing guy in Palm Springs who had, this was February of 2009, he'd gone missing in December of 2008. And somebody had just kind of posted in an article a description of the last person they saw him with, and they described the Prince of Nepal to a T. And so I find myself basically the next day in the Palm Springs Police Department in the white room with the cameras in all the corners, and kind of realized I was in the the first 48 room, and got the good cop bad cop routine. But in the end, they turned good cop, and all was well. I got a call a week later thanking me for coming in, and finally, after 10 years of these guys committing crimes, the original con men, they arrested all three of them, plus two hitmen, because this turned into a homicide. And then there was a sixth man who was kind of a offshoot, kind of a patsy. He did some of the they tricked him into doing some stuff, but he went down with them as well. This was also the first case where the FBI cracked an iPhone, and so this was back before Telegram and Signal and encrypted things. So we got 31,000 text messages before, during, and after, and the AT&T at the time was the only provider you could use an iPhone with. So they helped the police pinpoint all of their locations, and that shot all their defenses. And it was a wild court case. And eventually everyone was convicted and sentenced to life without parole. And I should tell you, this is actually a 12-hour podcast we just finished with Warner Brothers, that isn't out yet. And we were this is actually a Dateline episode that is going to air, or that was supposed to air last week, and we were going to join this to that, and that didn't happen because they're playing legal games, as we've all learned. Now you can delay, and so we can't air anything until sentencing. So if you don't want to know the spoilers, close your ears until I change the slide. But basically, over the pandemic, they got a retrial, and on the first day of the retrial, we found the body, by a fluke. And so that's when Dateline called. That's when the podcast was going, and that is also when HBO called. So we're in the middle of a series there. But even crazier, just before the Prince of Nepal started his trial, he forgot that when he went from his prison that he'd been at for a decade to a new prison, that he was a new guy, and the new prisoners didn't take to that, and so he was actually killed in jail. So we have one prince down. That would be the guy in the upper right hand corner there. Sorry, backwards. Anyway, so while they're in jail, they are still out there. So I would that's really why I want to tell you there's lots more of these guys. So now you can unplug your ears. Um, so you don't know the spoiler. Uh, so who are con artists, right? So basically, they're sociopaths. They don't have empathy, and so there's just no feelings if for hurting you, right? They're not homicidal maniacs that are running around with knives and chainsaws, right? They blend in to they're your neighbors, they're your friend. They were my best friend of 5 years. Had no idea. Of course, looking back, there were flags. Some con men like to, or con artists, I should say, because men and women, but they like to operate in the ether, which basically is that point of stress, right, where your emotions take over and you're not thinking clearly. A lot of that can happen. To give you an example, it's sort of like kind of on Black Friday, right? You want to do all this shopping because this is the best deals are now, or flash sale, only for an hour, and your emotions take over because this is a deal, but is it really? So con men operate in the same way. You get that call from a relative that says, I need $1,000, or I've been kidnapped, but it's really an AI voice, but you're more concerned that it's a that your relatives have been kidnapped, and your mind doesn't think, hey, wait, let me call them. And it turns out, they're actually, sitting at work, and they're wondering why you're calling them, freaking out. And so, we see ourselves as equals. We're raised as kids, at kindergarten, right? We're treat everybody equally, treat everybody fairly. But con artists, they operate in the predator versus prey mode. They see us as prey, and so if we're not thinking that way, we're easily we can easily be victims. So again, I know this sounds all scary, but I'm not trying to make you not have friends. I'm trying to just make you aware. So please don't take this as doom and gloom. Um, they're also professional liars. Now, there's a wonderful psychologist out there named Maria Konnikova, who's done a lot of research on this. She has a lot of YouTube videos, and she likes to call this duping delight. And that is, basically, we all know the psychology of looking down, and you're not, like if somebody looks down, they're lying, right? Or if they look up into the left, they're not being truthful. And professional con artists can look you right in the eye and lie. And that's that duper's delight. They love to just stare at you and lie, and hijack your trust. And again, that's where that betrayal, gets you right here. And they'll also, they love to scour your social media. So I can't emphasize enough to, at some point today, go through your friend list on Facebook, Instagram, whatever your social media is, because that's how they learn everything about you. Look at your privacy settings. Look at who, if you've listed family members, right? They'll know who your family are. Be very careful about what you put that is personal on, especially on Facebook. Because there is we'll get to it later, but seniors are a high target, and a lot of seniors are on Facebook and aren't exactly savvy with a lot of the settings within Facebook, and it can be ripe for the picking. It's easy targets. And many of these con artists aren't in this country. The significant portion of them are in West Africa and in South Asia, which also makes prosecution very difficult. And so they jumped a little ahead, but who are the victims, right? So the most common group of these victims are groups in the ages 60 to 69, followed by the 30 to 39 age group. And now everybody can be a victim, but these are the demographics and are the common groups. But we all think, oh, I'm too smart to be conned. But believe it or not, the people who are conned the most are actually well-educated people, professionals, because generally we think we can't be conned. And ironically, 10 to 20% of people who are conned are actually conned again because they think, oh, my luck has changed, or this can't happen to me again. It is quite shocking. And it's not stopping. In fact, you would think we might be learning our lesson, but they're getting more and more savvy. And especially as new technology is introduced, new apps, there's just new ways to commit fraud. I mean, look at the numbers, right? In 2021, it was 5.8 billion. It was almost 9 billion in 2022, and it's over 10 billion in 2023. And the imposter scams are leading that category at almost 3 billion, where investment scams are by far the most popular. I know that there's a new one where you're getting a random deposit via Zelle or Venmo, and then they ask you to send it back, but to a different account. But that's either from a stolen credit card via Venmo, or it's from a hijacked bank account, and then you send that money back to a random account, but then the bank scrapes back that same amount back to the original person. So you're out that. So every time there's a new app and some new technology, they figure out a new way. So let's talk about the two cons and the new con. So we have financial cons, relationship cons, and the new con, which is predatory guardianship. The word con comes from the word confidence. And I was watching a video from on YouTube about con artists, and they were saying that the origin of confidence man comes from the 1800s of a man in New York who basically went up to people and said, do you have the confidence in me to loan me your watch and for a day, and I'll return it to you tomorrow? Which was a very loaded question, because it basically says, what kind of a person do you think I am? What kind of a person are you? Are you a non-trusting person? Do you think I'm a bad person? And it really puts them on the spot. Again, it's that ether, like, oh, what should I do? And eventually, after he was caught with a whole bunch of watches, he was labeled the confidence man. And that's how we kind of get the word con. So there's a little history of cons for you. But here are some ways to kind of look to see if you've got a financial con in your life. And so the first one is you'll see they tend to be very fast talking. They love to blend in again, so you may not notice it right away. They'll dress properly. I mean, I remember the Prince of Nepal was always in a nice suit, and he was always bragging about his $1,200 shoes. Very, very friendly. You'll find sometimes these investment guys, they're your buddies. They'll take you to a nice dinner, then you invest with them and they ghost you, or suddenly they're not so nice and they're asking for more money, and they're not your friends anymore. A lot of times they make a lot of money sound like nothing, like, I'll just invest 500,000, it's no big deal. They'll drop names, they'll drop big company names. We're all Intel people, so that's not an uncommon thing for us to hear. They'll drop a piece of paper that shows looks like a bunch of numbers and how you could turn this money into millions of dollars. But maybe they don't let you take it home. So if it's a quick look at some numbers, and then they take it away from you, and they make it sound urgent, like you've got to make this decision now, or you have until tomorrow. They are not able to back up their claims. They they offer guaranteed returns, or they say, if it doesn't work out, we'll give you all your money back, and that's nowhere in writing, right? These are the things that are should raise flags. A lot of times they'll pitch the high-end lifestyle, right? They say, oh, the next year, imagine you'll be driving your new Ferrari. It sounds like a lot of MLM pitches, these pyramid schemes, right? They'll drop billionaire friends' names. A common we all have been trained on email phishing, right? So that's still coming in our inboxes, right? So the social compliance, but there's even ones. I lived in Vegas for a long time. There were guys that would dress like the valets, and they would, you pull up in your nice car, and they take your key, and then they take your car, and you come back, and they have no record of ever taking your car, and you thought you handed it to the right valet, and you never bothered to check if he actually worked there. So there's also, exploiting what we call the herd principle, where everybody's doing it. Get in, you don't miss out, because everybody's investing in this. It's the hottest thing. And that, we all have greed, right? We all want to make money. We all, there's a picture of that private jet. Who doesn't want to travel this way, right? And so they'll love to exploit it. So you have to keep that in mind as well. There's a trick called wetting your beak, right? Where maybe you're not so sure that you want to invest with them. So maybe they'll say, okay, well, in here, drop $5,000 in, and then a month later you've got there's 6,000 in the account. Okay, well, now I'll invest the 100,000, and then poof, it's gone, right? So that's another trick. And the last one, which I think is probably, the it sounds crazy, but it actually happens. And it was in my story, this was a big part of it, is the secrets, or the danger, right? The spy movie. So the Prince of Nepal, he would always travel in 3 town cars, and he was in one, and you never knew which one he was in, because people were after him. So when you would travel with him, there would be 3, and there was always a level of intrigue to that. It was kind of James Bondy. And so if he had his mark, he would stay at the Four Seasons here on Market Street in San Francisco, and when he would have his mark, he'd go in, and the staff would say, "Welcome back, your Highness," or "Well, good to see you, Your Majesty," and they'd bow. And if you were one of his marks, you were like, "Oh wow, I'm with the prince." So there's yeah, and he conned a lot of people. So these guys got like a little over $10 million. So anyway, now the next one is the hardest part, and this involves heartbreak and feelings, and so please don't think I'm insensitive when I talk about these things, but it is something that needs to be talked about, and that is relationship cons, or romance scams. And the ideal target for these guys are people who generally have a lower self-esteem. They're and they don't even have to be single, right? People can be in a relationship and still not be happy, and then suddenly, especially online, you spark up a romance, and there are people, especially online, who will take advantage of that, and they are experts at this. So here are things you need to look out for. When a relationship moves really quickly, you want to put the brakes on, because hey, especially if you're the one who has the higher net worth, and if you still don't know a lot about them, right? They give you that common name, right? There's a common name like John Smith. They work for the CIA, right, or FBI, or they work for some company that doesn't have a presence on the internet. They're far away, so you've never seen their home, or especially if they're always available, or they're never available. And something always comes up, when you're supposed to meet. Oh, I couldn't make payroll, so can I borrow, I need $25,000 to make payroll, and then I'll get a big order in, and then I can pay you back, and then I'll fly out to see you. That kind of thing is that's a definite no-no, but it's amazing how many people pay this. And you'll find, as you talk to them, right, maybe their stories don't add up, you can't verify them. I'm telling you, trust your gut. As much as you might be in love, or you've got feelings, but your gut is like, oh, I don't know. The I don't know is your get out, right? That's your get out. They'll love to impress you with flash, right? The prince was, again, key at this. He always had a big suite at the Four Seasons. Those 3 town cars. It was crazy. Another trick that they'll use is isolation tactics. If you find yourself in a situation where this person is not letting you talk to your family, or vice versa, you know someone whose partner, the person they're dating, isn't letting them talk to their friends anymore. They may be in a situation where they're being conned by a romance scammer. If you're dating someone and they keep making subtle inquiries into your finances, there's a red flag. And again, like I mentioned, asking for a loan, or if they're constantly asking you questions, but when you ask them questions, you can't get much out of them, there's a flag. And finally, really the most dangerous of all is the quick marriage. So that is really where you want to say no. You might be swept off your feet, and this is the one, and it's been 2 months, and you just know it. But especially if you are the one with the high net worth, and you might have a prenup in place, but prenups don't matter. If you accidentally drown in the bathtub, right? I cannot tell you how cautious you need to be about quick marriages. So, and maybe I watch too much Dateline, I don't know, but that would be my advice there in the relationship con world. Okay, so now there's kind of this new one, and in the back of the slide deck, I've got the information for you, but there's something called predatory guardianship, and we all know guardianship from our good friend Britney Spears, and how she was had a guardianship that was keeping her all of her money and everything was kept in, and we all freed Britney, and now we don't know what to do with Britney. But the guardianship is, it's basically designed to help people who aren't in control of themselves, and there are unfortunately people out there, professional guardians, who take advantage of this. They like to scour the obituaries, and they will see, oh, look, here's somebody in Bel Air or Atherton or somewhere that is now widowed, and then they can go on public records and see, oh, yeah, they bought that home 30 years ago. I'm sure they own that home outright. And then you work with a corrupt judge and a corrupt nursing home, where you are then taken by force and held by force in this nursing home at $30,000 a month, and your guardian makes $10,000 a month, and the judge gets a nice kickback, and they sell everything you own, and there is nothing you can do about it. So that was actually detailed in a movie called I Care a Lot on Netflix. It's still out there, and there's actually a documentary that Netflix did, and these are in the back slides, that had to be pulled because the suspects in this case actually sued, and so you'll find that that episode in the series has been removed. But it was detailed a guy in Boston who worked all his life and bought a couple houses on his block, and they took them all from him. and it's just a tragic story. But that's in the back of the slides there. So who are the victims, and what can you do, right? So the most common target here are seniors, and especially ones who are alone, right? So first of all, regardless of the situation, we need to be involved in the lives of our elderly, for all reasons, right? But this is a big one. So plan ahead. Again, if you are watching and you're a senior and you have no family, you are especially vulnerable. But regardless, lawyer up. There are these attorneys who do specialize in elder law. And when a predatory guardian sees that, it's too much work. You're not. They like the low-hanging fruit, so they'll move on. And again, you can Google this and find out lots more information on it. But if you know someone in this situation, there are things you can do. Adult Protective Services is now aware of it. And there are ombudsmans who can look into this, and you don't have to be a family member to file a complaint. It could be a neighbor of yours, right? And if that person happens to be getting VA benefits or Social Security benefits, they also can get involved. So you can alert them. And in some states, those guardians actually have to be certified. So if they are corrupt, you can file a complaint with their licensing agencies there, and that may help out the victim there. So that kind of runs the gamut of my things I've learned since I've been conned. And I'll open it up for Q&A. And so Howard, I'll toss it back to you to figure out how that works.
Okay, well, if you have any questions for Tyson, please feel free to enter them into the Q&A box. As of right now, it seems like you've done an extraordinary job of explaining everything you covered because there are no questions. But if there are any questions, we'll give him a few minutes to get entered into the Q&A box. And then while we're waiting, any updates on when we might see that constantly delayed TV segment?
Yep. So the latest is the hitman was sentenced. So basically, the lawyer and my friend Danny they were convicted. Danny was convicted on Halloween last year, and then his lawyer was convicted, I think, in July of last year, so almost a year ago. And they're claiming ineffective counsel. Danny claimed that one of the jurors worked on one of my TV shows, which was weird because he actually works on TV shows, but he didn't work on one of ours. And so that we were like, how did he even know that? But now, so they filed motion after motion, and so now the judge has delayed the next sentencing till July 12th. And so we cannot air anything until sentencing is complete. But I think the judge knows he's up against some really crafty con men. In the very first trial, they represented themselves as their own attorneys, and the judge gave them like $1 million to help them in their defense. And they bought these MacBook Pros, and they used the MacBooks to record the judge. When the lids are down, MacBooks are still on. And so the judge was in his courtroom, thought he was alone, made some inappropriate comments, and that's how they got the retrial. So I mean, these guys are crafty.
Very good. Thank you. So we do have a few more questions and comments. First, I guess there's a few people who would be very interested in getting a copy of the presentation. Do you have a problem with us sharing it, Tyson?
Nope. Okay, so now I'm learning how to see the Q&A box here. All right. Yeah, no, you absolutely, you can feel free to send the presentation to friends and family members. I will, and also I'll say, I will say that, uh, and I'm not out. This is not. I'm not from the book standpoint. There was a little mistake in the cover of the book. A draft accidentally got uploaded. So if you buy the book today, you're actually going to get the wrong cover. It should be fixed in like 2 days. So don't judge
Contain your
me.
enthusiasm for 2 days, right?
So yeah, but the Kindle is available now, right? But with the right cover. But yeah, so the yeah, you can absolutely send this out. But and also in the back there are more slides which we can get to. But there are I put a whole list of TV shows and
Yeah,
movies.
Tyson, we'll get to those after we
We'll get
wrap
to
up
those.
the
Okay,
Q&A. So
perfect.
that's fine. For the audience, what we will do is we have a copy of Tyson's deck. When we post the video, which should hopefully happen within a week or so, we will also post the presentation.
Yep,
So
yep.
you'll be able to download it from there.
Yep, and
Uh,
I see a question about my Danny being my best friend.
yes.
So did time play a role in his ability to con someone like me? You know, that is so yeah. So the question is, you say Danny was your best friend for 5 years. Did time play a role in his ability to con someone like you? You know, that's a great question. I you know the It's really funny because we were all part of a big circle of friends, and slowly, but so you know when I found out that I had been conned, right? So I went to call all of our friends to say, hey, you know, I've been like, Danny's a bad guy, right? And he just ripped me off, and no one would return my calls. And it turns out that he had beaten them to me. So while I was gone, he was calling everyone and telling them. Now, mind you, when I had left San Francisco, right, I was, I had working at Intel, right? It was during the Pentium 2 boom days, and there, I had, we were all doing very well, and I had a nice big house in San Francisco, and I was in my late 20s, early 30s, and so I was one of San Francisco's biggest drug dealers. And that's why I was in South America for a month running from the DEA. So if you answered my call, you would be part of the investigation. And it's funny because I ended up with the surveillance photos from Wells Fargo, sending those to everybody, and everybody was like, okay, yeah, Danny's the bad guy, and that eventually ran him out of San Francisco. But the it was I remember him telling me over that time that, oh, hey, don't talk to Bill anymore, he ripped me off. Oh, don't talk to this guy anymore, he ripped me off. And so that just he strung me along until the time was right to strike. And I was it was just oblivious, and we had this amazing friendship that was just silly fun. And he had these wild, amazing stories that just kind of the things that I mentioned. Like I said, if I had seen this presentation, I probably would have seen all the flags. But I think probably naivety is what played the role in his ability to con me. Um, uh, because there were plenty of signs. I was just naive, and I
So
didn't.
that actually provides a great segue into the next question, which is how has this experience changed your day-to-day activities?
Aha, great question. Oh, I didn't see the scroll there. Aha. Okay. So the uh, it is my trust. So there's a lot of things. One, I do not make friends anymore at bars. That's the first thing. In fact, after I left Intel, I ended up at Gartner, and I only made friends with CIOs because I thought, you know what, CIOs, have their act together, and they're not going to rip me off. And that, so all of my friends in Vegas were the CIOs and VPs of IT of all the casinos, and that had perks. But I also just generally I whittled down my close friend group to very few people. I got a safe. I am much more cautious about anything I tell strangers. I'm just and also I am much more vigilant with my parent. My parents are both 80, and I go see them once a week, and I check their phones. I got them they still have a landline, so I got them a new if you look at Best Buy, AT&T and Samsung both have phones that if you have a number that calls that is not recognizable, the number, you program in numbers of their friends, and if a number that's not one of their friends calls, it is intercepted with a recording to say announce yourself, so that if it's a junk call, it just gets scrapped. So now they don't, because my dad will talk to anybody, and so you can tell where I get it from.
Cool. There's a related question. I'm gonna be a nice guy, even though it was submitted on the chat window. It's kind of relevant to what you just said. What information do you give to your friend to enable him to con you?
So, interestingly enough, I didn't give him that much information. He had what I and again, this is part of the 12-hour story, but I actually used, so he had used my car, and I used my car. I bought a brand new car, and I had this fancy GPS in it, and the GPS, I was able to backtrack everywhere he went, and I stopped at the houses he went to, and I finally met someone who said, yeah, I met a Tyson in that car, but he wasn't you. And I said, well, how did you know? And he says, well, I saw the driver's license. And so this is how it all went down. And then I tested it myself, but so I took my driver's license to Wells Fargo, and I said, hey, I lost my ATM card. Can you send me a new one? Can I change my PIN, and can I raise my limit to $4,000 a day? And I was able to do it right then and there. And 2 days later, I had an ATM card in my mailbox. And so, yeah, that's how he got it. And I'd left everything at home, and so that's how he had gotten in. So he got into the mailbox, and got into the house, and yeah, it was I didn't really. And then in the house, I didn't have a safe, so it was open season from there, and he scoured everything. I remember in the things that I found, I found a business card for a financial advisor, or a VP of finance at Barclays, and I called him up and asked if Danny had ever stayed at his house and if anything went missing, and he said, yeah, actually, I travel back and forth to London, and I have a passport that I keep in my closet, and I usually keep British pounds and euros in there, and I went to travel and they were gone. And I said, wait a minute, was that on January 14th? And he was like, how do you know that? And I said, because I'm staring at a foreign currency exchange receipt with that date at this address. And he says, Tyson, that is right across the street from my house. He goes, my God, I fired my maid over this. And it's funny because he's like, I hide that passport, it's hidden in between clothes in the closet. And I said, I know the credit cards that Danny used, I had put in a sock drawer, and he found it. So I mean, these guys scour once you're in your house. So yeah, that was get a safe.
So here's an interesting question. LifeLock and similar organizations promise to catch fraud, but seem to be focused on false loan application and unexpected hard credit checks. the cons you describe, such as relationship cons, predatory guardianship, etc., don't seem to be caught by LifeLock. Aside from just being wary and very vigilant, are there any tools that might help with these more complex or subtle cons?
So, not that I am aware of, except for search engines. I would recommend, if this person sends you a photo, to do a Google image search, because they may, a lot of times when people are conned, they like to post, look out for this guy, because once they do it once, they do it again.
Yep.
So I might recommend the Google image search, is a common, is a good tool to use. But I don't know that there's not necessarily an app that's out there that you can type in, there's no, I don't think, maybe there's a great AI use there, entering in your chats to see if AI says this is a scam or not. It might be a business
Certainly,
opportunity.
certainly personal diligence and suspicion of people who you don't know, healthy suspicion, not just saying everybody's bad, but being wary and trust but verify, right?
Trust but verify is
Is one good approach.
absolutely, yep, that's
Uh,
absolutely the motto that should be on your Wi-Fi.
yep. Uh, there's one more question in the queue, and that is, do cons typically stick to one of these methods, ID theft, emotional, etc., or do they try one, get bolder, and then escalate?
Yeah, so it's you know um in the slides, everything varies, right? So the the relationship scams that you find online, right? The ones you see, I mean, I don't know if you can say they escalate. I mean, they just keep at it, right? I mean, it's sort of, there's this great con right now. The snail mail is hot again, right? The snail mail cons, getting a jury sum. So there's this new one where they send you mail, and it's a fine for not showing up for jury duty. And here's the thing: there are people, you can send it out to tons of people, and somebody like me would see that it looks official, and I'd be like, I never even, garbage, right? Throw it away. But there might be somebody who's like, oh God, I did get jury duty and I didn't show up, and here, send $300 to this website, and you'll be exonerated. And you're like, all right, then I'll get out of it. But it's sort of like you throw spaghetti on a wall, and at least one of them will stick. And so there's that method, right? So you can escalate that way, and at least you'll get one. But there's Howard mentioned to me yesterday, and it's in the back slides here. CBS this entire week is doing a segment in the news on romance scams. And there's a woman who she got scammed out of $1.5 million, and now they think that these guys that did it to her actually murdered her. So that kind of is an escalation. It looked like suicide, it might be murder, but either way, it led to her death. You now see, if you want to talk escalation, if anybody here has a teenage boy or girl, but mostly the boys, sextortion is super popular right now, and these boys are committing suicide, where a girl hits them up on Instagram or something and chats them up and talks sweet to them, and then sends them a nude, and then says, hey, send me back one, but make sure you show your face. And then the attitude switches, and they become evil, and they start demanding money, or they're going to send that photo to your family and friends, and your girlfriend or boyfriend, and humiliate you, or send me $800. And so you send them the $800, and then they say, send me another 800. And there's a story in the news now of this star athlete in the Michigan Upper Peninsula who committed suicide literally that night, the night that this happened. He had a girlfriend, and after he committed suicide, these guys went to the girlfriend and then started extorting her with the photo, saying, "I'm going to, we're going to humiliate you." And I mean, they can be just horrible, horrible sociopaths.
Terrible, terrible. Well, Tyson, you've got a few slides remaining to
Yep,
follow the Q&A that highlights some of these additional resources. Why don't you go ahead and pursue those right now?
sure. Let's see. Do I need to do share screen again? Is that
Yes,
okay? Here we
you're
go.
getting good at this.
All right. Q&A and share. All right, here we go. And let me close this out. And all right. So this is the movie I was talking about in the I Care a Lot, the Predatory Guardianship. It's on Netflix, and this is based on a true story. This is an incredible movie. Tia Leone is in it. And then I talked about that documentary series called Dirty Money. It was episode 9 called Guardians. And then I've also put a tiny link in. It was a really big link, and Howard shrunk it for me. But it's a longer list by a lawyer on how to keep your family safe from this predatory guardianship, which I think is definitely something, especially I think quite a few people on this call probably have a significant net worth in real estate. So certainly worth looking into. For the investments side of things, if you've been in an investment, you're looking at an investment, you're wondering if it's a scam, right? Check your state's security division to see if that investment is in fact licensed, and that the investment manager that you're working with is also licensed. You can check with the Better Business Bureau. Make sure you get the prospectus, not just look at it. Take it home. And again, like I said, if anybody says an investment is no risk, then run. On YouTube, there's just a ton of resources. If you search for avoiding a con man, you will see a bunch. Like I mentioned, Maria Konnikova, starts with a K. Her last name, she is incredible. Great psychologist. She's turned into a poker player, which is great because she's great at reading human behavior. And then also, if you search for CBS romance scams, you can get caught up on this week's whole series, and it's frightening. And so there was another question in the Q&A thing about what can you do? I think there was something in there, but in Clark County, Nevada, where I still have property there, has something called RNS, a Recording Notification Service. So if anybody has a house in Las Vegas, and it's for free, and you can set it up to alert you to any changes to your title. It doesn't stop anything from happening, but you will get an email saying, "Hey, this change was made." But you can, I didn't have the time to check every county in the country, but you can check your county and see if there's a similar service. And if not, ask them to do something like that, because then you don't need title lock. And then I mentioned that we did a couple of shows prior to this. Prior to the story going off the rails, and you can find them on Discovery Plus, the ID channel, on demand, or on Amazon. So look for A Stranger in My Home. It's season 3, episode 5, called Princes and Paupers. That's an hour-long episode. And if you want to see a half-hour episode just on the Prince of Nepal, it's called Forbidden, and there's only one season. There's a few different variations of the show Forbidden, but it's called season 1, episode 9, The Dark Prince. That one's just only on Amazon right now. And it's forbidden. It's kind of a yellow screen with the word forbidden on it as the icon. Some other shows to watch for finance and romance scandals: The Tinder Swindler, Inventing Anna, The Puppet Master, Dirty John. In fact, the producer of Dirty John is the same producer for my Dateline episode. And if you guys are into Dirty John, the show, this is on par, just as crazy. And then if you have Hulu, there is a fantastic series called Trafficked. Mariana Van Zeller is the host, and there are, in terms of scams, I found them for you, so you don't have to search. But specifically season 2, episode 2, romance scams. Oh my gosh, that is quite possibly one of the most jaw-dropping episodes I've seen on scams, because she literally sits there in West Africa in the room while a guy pretends to be a girl and scams this guy in the US and just literally pulls money right out of him, while he's saying, I'll be able to travel to you, but I just need some more money. And then boom, it shows up in his, it's amazing how easily it is to just fool somebody by playing with their heart. It's drives me crazy. So that said, it is 1 o'clock, and I think we timed this just perfectly. So thank you all for listening to me yap, and be safe.
Sounds great. Well, certainly thank you, Tyson. We certainly appreciate you sharing your experience, your expertise, your vulnerability. And I wanted to also highlight there was one exchange in the chat which had to do with sextortion. And one of the other participants mentioned that one participant asked, how can you protect your kids? Another person responded that the FBI considers this to be a crime, and they can help you in terms of dealing with something like that. So in any event, that concludes basically the bulk of our program here. I want to thank everyone for participating. One more reminder that you should register for our Bum for Alums event on May 16th. Again, if you scroll back in the chat, you'll find the links, but you can also look for it online. And other than that, hope to see you guys on the 16th. Thank you for your time today, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you all.